Welcome to Once Upon a Coin, documenting the ongoing history of blockchain and cryptocurrency. And as always, I'm your storyteller, Jason Cassidy. Today's story is about one of the most iconic cryptocurrencies of all time. It's been dubbed as the silver to Bitcoin's gold. But as you're about to learn, there's a heck of a lot more behind this coin and the impressive brand that it's built over the years. This is the story of Litecoin.
Sun cast a shadow, a digital line is coming over the mountain and over your mind. Double down your Bitcoin, hang on for the ride. We're moving into the future, one block at a time. One block at a time.
You have to go back in time quite a distance if you want to learn about the origins of Litecoin, or LTC as it's known by its ticker symbol. When Bitcoin was released in early 2009, word about it spread quickly. And within a few years, it had gone from obscurity to making the rounds in the major news outlets. As people learned about Bitcoin, some of the more motivated and technologically savvy amongst them decided that they wanted to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty. Simply investing into Bitcoin or building an app for it was not going to cut the mustard for this group. The public was now aware of the potential to create new types of money that were decentralized and private in nature. This held quite the allure for one person who decided that he would get involved in cryptocurrency the best way that he could think of, by creating his own. And that man was MIT graduate and Google engineer Charlie Lee. And he dubbed his creation Litecoin. On October 9th, 2011, Lee took to the legendary Bitcoin Talk forum and announced his new project to the crypto community. It was an instant hit within the industry, and at least part of that can be attributed to how Lee presented Litecoin out of the gate. Lee has been forthcoming about how Litecoin came into existence. He admitted that he'd been playing around with a Bitcoin codebase and decided that he wanted to make a copy of it, and then turned the endeavor into a fun side hobby. This innocent act of creating a fun side hobby would end up changing Lee's life forever. I mentioned Bitcoin's role in serving as the inspiration behind creating Litecoin for good reason. Just looking at the title of the forum post announcing Litecoin's debut gives you a hint towards Lee's line of thinking. The Lite version of Bitcoin was a powerful statement back in 2011 due to the fact that not many altcoins even existed at the time. And that meant that there was most definitely a number 2 position behind Bitcoin to be captured in the coming years as the industry matured. Lee framed this narrative right into the composition of the currency itself. Bitcoin has a hard cap of 21 million coins that will ever be created. Litecoin has a hard cap of 84 million coins that will ever be created, making for a rather simple 4 times increase in supply. And just like Bitcoin, Litecoin was created as a proof of work blockchain. Although it is worth mentioning here that while Bitcoin uses the SHA-256 algorithm, Litecoin differs in this sense given that it uses the script algorithm. The similarities between the two run deep, even right down to the code base. In fact, Litecoin is considered one of the first altcoins to be derived directly from Bitcoin's open source code base. So, from literally every perspective that one could look at this from, Litecoin was positioned from day one to be the de facto alternative to Bitcoin. If you had missed out on cheap Bitcoin, well, now you had a chance to load up on its little brother, Litecoin. Between the way that it was marketed by Lee, plus the similarities that it shared with Bitcoin, everything here just clicked. People loved the familiarity of what Litecoin represented. Plus, it could be a great place to test out new features that maybe Bitcoin wasn't just quite ready for yet. I myself was involved with Litecoin early on, so I can personally attest to the kind of mindset that investors held towards the currency around this time. If you couldn't get a ton of cheap gold bars, then you might as well load up on some cheap silver and then figure out the rest later. This type of attitude was pervasive, and some even dared to dream so big that they envisioned a day in the future where Litecoin may even take over Bitcoin itself. This is what the early days of the altcoin market were all about. Anything was possible now that the floodgates of innovation had been kicked wide open. Just days after the announcement, on October 13th, the Litecoin blockchain officially went live, starting with the creation of the Genesis block. The price didn't do much at first, starting off at a couple cents, given that it was only traded on a few exchanges out of the gate. For context, Bitcoin was only worth around $3 US a coin at the same time in late October 2011. So the real price action for these coins was yet to come. By the summer of 2012, Litecoin had been getting more attention as the altcoin of choice to diversify Bitcoin profits into. The price had creeped up a little bit to 3 cents US a coin, but it wasn't doing much. Something big was happening though. It just couldn't be seen yet. In the lead up to Bitcoin's crazy bull market run up in 2013, a lot of people ended up learning about Litecoin as well. So by the time the market was ready to turn green, Litecoin was already well established and it benefited tremendously. To put things into perspective, Litecoin started the year off at a price of just 7 cents US on January 1st. But just a few months later in the spring, the currency was busy breaking the $1 US milestone. I actually remember this moment in time quite well. I was excited, talking to other traders in the BTCE troll box, one of the only exchanges that traded Litecoin at the time, as the currency surpassed the $1 US mark for the first time in its history. It really was an incredible moment because you didn't have to guess. You knew that history had just been made and you were part of it.
Coming to the end of the third quarter, LeBron James, a shot at history.
Life was going pretty good for most folks in crypto, and by the end of the summer, Lee had seen enough. The crypto movement wasn't a fad, it was a real thing, and Lee wanted to be a big part of it. And that's why in August, he announced he was ending his 6-year career at Google and instead had accepted a role of engineering director at Coinbase. This was a bold move, leaving a tech giant like Google for an unproven company operating in an unproven industry. But for Lee, it just made perfect sense. And beyond that, it was construed as good news to see the founder of a top altcoin going full-time into crypto. By November, the bull market had gone into overdrive, with Bitcoin leading that charge as it marched toward the $1,000 a coin position. Litecoin was holding its own here as well, making it over the $40 a coin mark before dropping down considerably by year's end. As early 2014 was setting in, it was becoming clear to many that, at least for now, the bull market was over. And while it would be several more years into the future before the next great bull market in crypto did take place, when it came to Litecoin, it was already a made coin now. If you were holding Litecoin when it was only valued at a few cents a pop and sold near the top of the market, then you are now looking at life-changing amounts of money here. Experiencing the crazy bull market of 2013 together, plus playing the leading roles of that show, really helped cement the connection that people were already making between Bitcoin and Litecoin. 2014 was the start of what would become a 3-year-long bear market, killing off a lot of the speculators that had got into crypto to make a quick profit. Litecoin continued to grow its brand and influence when in April, it proposed a very novel solution to a problem a competitor was having. Dogecoin, who had also gone through a crazy wave of adoption over the previous year, now found itself in a bit of a pickle. Due to its rapid issuance, Dogecoin was now at real risk of running out of coins dedicated to the miners in the form of a block reward. And if this were to happen, then it would leave the Dogecoin network vulnerable to an attack. Knowing that Dogecoin was also a script-based blockchain, Lee suggested that Dogecoin and Litecoin actually team up and engage in merged mining. This was important, as it meant that Dogecoin could now benefit from the security of the Litecoin network. By September, the plan was put into place and merged mining began. The plan worked, with Dogecoin seeing a 1,500% increase in hash rate and mining difficulty. This move obviously created a friendly relationship between the two standalone blockchains. But much more importantly, it helped grow Litecoin's reputation for being in the industry for all the right reasons. By 2015, Litecoin had already been around for 4 years now. And in crypto, that can only mean one thing: the halvening. Litecoin was set to go through its first reduction in block rewards, going from 50 LTC per block down to 25 LTC per block, thus the halvening. Just like Bitcoin, Litecoin also had its own deflationary mechanism in place. And so on August 25th, 2015, the network's first ever halvening went down. For many, this was a sign that Litecoin was growing up, and fast. To be honest, there wasn't a lot of fun stuff to discuss about Litecoin in the year of 2016, but at least they did put out some good news. A much-needed roadmap update was released over the summer, giving insight into the Litecoin Foundation's plans on how they were going to raise the profile of the currency. Litecoin, its community, investors, and partners were all grappling with the reality of the ever-changing blockchain landscape. In 2011, what Litecoin represented was new, exciting, and it was unique. Altcoins were rare to see, and even rarer to rise to some level of prominence. But the world was heading into 2017, and by now, smart contract-based blockchains like Ethereum were becoming all the rage. Most of the top blockchains also had highly visible and social founders or personalities attached to them. Litecoin had none of this stuff going for it, and thus a real effort to promote it as the tried, tested, and true silver to Bitcoin's gold would be needed if it had any chance of staying relevant going forward. So, it may have been good timing and thus good fortune that the next great bull market of 2017 was about to kick off. Litecoin enjoyed this ride as much as any established coin of its era. It had started off 2017 at a price of around $4 US per coin. But by the time the wild run of the bull market was over, almost a full year later, Litecoin had exceeded the value of $300 US per coin. True, it had a pretty spectacular crash in price after this. However, that was kind of to be expected after such a crazy run up in price in such a short amount of time. But before this record-breaking year for Litecoin was over, there was a wee bit of controversy that would take place over the holiday season. On December 20th, Charlie Lee went to Reddit to announce that he had sold all of his Litecoin holdings, stating that he felt ownership of the coins constituted a conflict of interest. This was big news, and it was met with mixed feelings. Some applauded the move and sympathized with Lee's reasonings. Some were more concerned about the impact that all those sold coins would end up having on the market. And still, there were others whose concern was that Lee didn't have a stake in his own game now. They felt that this could lead him to pursuing other interests that had a financial benefit associated with it. Eventually, though, the calendar flipped over to 2018 and a long bear market began to settle in. Litecoin, along with pretty much everything else in the market, experienced a serious contraction in value, seeing prices and trading volume fall across the board. Things didn't improve much when in March, Lee made a public announcement about the abrupt collapse of the Litecoin-based startup, LitePay. The company, which had promised LTC-powered debit cards plus payment processor services for merchants, suddenly shut down. There was instant suspicion about an exit scam going down, given that the CEO had recently come under scrutiny for lack of transparency around company operations. And the foundation did their best to head off any negative PR by acknowledging that there were issues with the company and apologizing to the community for any ill effects that were felt. This rare act of humility seemed to work, and the community eventually moved on from this setback. Just a few months had gone by when the foundation got yet another chance at redemption. They managed to get themselves in the news for all the right reasons when on July 11th, they announced they had formed a strategic partnership with TokenPay. The deal would see the foundation take a 9.9% stake in a German bank, and that bank was called WEG Bank AG. In return, they would pledge their support in helping onboard blockchain payment solutions to the bank, as well as helping out TokenPay with their various projects. The next year of 2019 was another down one for crypto, but when it came to Litecoin, they had their own celebration happening. On August 5th, Litecoin experienced its second ever halving event, going from 25 coins per block down to 12.5 coins per block. I think you're probably starting to get the idea behind these halving events by now. The price was under $100 a coin for most of the year, but better times were ahead, which leads us to 2020. And while 2020 was also nothing to write home about when it came to price or news, there were some interesting developments that did happen. In October, PayPal announced they would be entering the cryptocurrency market, and they listed Litecoin as one of the coins they would be allowing their customers to buy and sell on their platform. Litecoin immediately jumped 12% on the news, pushing the price up to $52 US a coin. Little did anyone know at the time, but it was moments like this that ended up leading to the crazy bull market of 2021. 2021 was a ridiculous year in crypto, seeing tremendous growth in all sectors, including OG coins. And Litecoin was no exception, as it hit an all-time high price of $412 per coin on May 9th. The currency also celebrated its 10th anniversary in October, so it's fair to say that 2021 was a pretty damn good year for Litecoin. The next year of 2022 brought some highly anticipated updates to their blockchain. On May 19th, the Mimblewimble protocol was introduced into Litecoin, giving it a higher level of financial privacy in the form of confidential transactions. Applying Mimblewimble to a Litecoin transaction would mean that now the amount of money being transferred would be hidden to everyone except the parties involved in the transaction itself. In a world where there are now literally hundreds of smart contract-based blockchains that allowed users to do things like the metaverse, DeFi, and NFTs, standalone blockchains like Litecoin had to have at least a couple well-adjusted and adopted use cases to remain competitive. And for Litecoin, privacy was now one of them. 2023 really didn't offer much of a reprieve though, with the price staying under $100 a coin for most of the year. There was at least one bright spot, however, because on August 2nd, Litecoin went through its third ever halving event. This time, the reward dropped from 12.5 Litecoin per block down to 6.25 Litecoin per block. And all of a sudden, Litecoin was 12 years old. Ironically enough, it would be Bitcoin's own upcoming halving event that would end up having the biggest impact on Litecoin's price. Bitcoin moved the entire market in the lead up to its halving event, which took place on April 19th, 2024. Litecoin actually managed to break through the $100 US barrier during the lead up to this historic Bitcoin event. But it has since settled back down, in lockstep with all the interest, which has now shifted focus to more captivating Bitcoin narratives like ordinals. All in all, Litecoin has had a pretty damn good run, and the best could very well yet be to come. It has greatly benefited from its close relationship with Bitcoin over the years, going so far as serving as something of a testnet for it at times. This can be witnessed by the implementation of segregated witness and the Lightning Network, where both were tested out on Litecoin first before making their way into Bitcoin. It may not be a hotbed of innovation, nor the next VC-backed blockchain startup that does all kinds of fancy things that no one really understands. But what it does have going for it is a reputation and a legacy, both of which are intact and are serving Litecoin well to this very day. Besides, sometimes coming in second place and winning silver isn't all that bad after all. I hope you enjoyed today's stroll down memory lane. Until next time, have fun and enjoy life, my friends. I'll be back soon with another incredible story to tell you.